Hi, friends. Tonight, we slip quietly into the tapestry of time, where gas lamps flicker low and the air carries the scent of soot and spice. Our journey begins in a place both distant and familiar, in the restless heart of a city known by all, yet truly understood by few. Welcome to London, the year of our Lord, 1666. A city of cobbled lanes and crooked rooftops, of chimney smoke and whispered prayers. A city about to be swallowed by flame. But not just yet. First, you must know the world in which this story is set, and gently, we will wander through it together. Imagine the morning mist gathering like breath against your window. You stir from sleep on a straw mattress, your hands reaching for warmth that is not there. You live in a humble garret, tucked beneath the sloping eaves of a timbered home that leans like an old man over the street below. The boards creak beneath your feet, and the air smells of wood smoke, damp wool, and something slightly sour, the scent of city life pressed too close. Outside your narrow window, London stirs. The year is 1666, and the city is a living thing, alive with markets and masons, bells and beggars, priests and pickpockets. With over 400,000 souls crammed within its sprawling walls, London is among the largest cities in the known world. But beneath her grandeur lies a vulnerability, one woven deep into the timber and pitch of her construction, into the habits of her people, and into the very way she breathes. You descend into the street, careful on the steep stairs slick with morning dew. Around you, shops are opening, shutters lifted, bread set out on boards, candles lit against the grey. You pass a milkmaid with pails sloshing at her sides, and a pair of boys chasing a one-eyed cat down an alleyway. The world is lively, vivid, bursting with the texture of ordinary survival, and everywhere there is wood. Wooden homes packed shoulder to shoulder, leaning close as if to whisper secrets. Wood for walls, for ceilings, for floors and beams. Thatched roofs dried to brittleness by long summers, chimneys belching smoke from every hearth. London is, quite literally, made of kindling. A fire here would not simply burn, it would consume, but few truly worry. Fires have happened before, after all. There were blazes in Southwark and Cripplegate. Each time, the city rebuilt, bruised but breathing. No one expects the next spark to be different, not even you. You walk toward Pudding Lane. The name is not as sweet as it sounds. It is a street of bakers and brewers, where flour drifts like dust upon the air, and ovens glow behind thick walls. It is here, on this most ordinary of streets, that a man named Thomas Fariner runs a bakery. You pass by it this morning without a second glance. Why would you linger? It's like any other, modest, warm, forgettable, and yet it is here that London's nightmare will begin. But that is still a night away. For now, the city lives. It breathes, and so do you. Let us pause to consider the challenges you would face in this world. Your health, for one, is fragile. Plague has only recently passed through London's gates, taking tens of thousands with it. The scars of that pestilence remain, in boarded-up homes, in quiet graveyards, in the wary glances exchanged between neighbours. Medicine is rudimentary. Doctors are as likely to bleed you as cure you. A simple cough can linger. A fever may mean farewell. Sanitation is primitive. Chamber pots are emptied into the street, often with a shout of "Gardy-loo!" a final warning before filth rains down. Rats are constant companions, fleas not far behind. And yet, this is home. You might believe, in your modern wisdom, that you'd fare better here, that your instincts or knowledge would guide you. But survival in 1666. London is not just a matter of quick feet. It is a matter of timing, of class, of connections. If you live near the Thames, you may escape by boat. But if your purse is empty and your feet weary, you may find all roads choked with chaos. And then there is the law. The city is governed by men with powdered wigs and heavy seals, not by emergency protocols. When word of a fire reaches the Lord, Mayor Sir Thomas Bloodworth, he dismisses it with the now infamous phrase, A woman might piss it out. That fatal hesitation will cost the city, and you, dearly. But you do not know this yet. You spend your morning cleaning, cooking, perhaps stitching a tear in your only good tunic. The city is loud with life, carts rattling, bells chiming, hammers pounding in the distance. Somewhere someone sings a psalm. Somewhere else, a quarrel breaks out over the price of eels. This is the calm before the fire, and beneath that calm lies danger. You see, what makes the Great Fire so devastating is not merely the blaze itself, but how utterly unprepared the people of London were. No fire brigades, no water mains, no sirens or flashing lights. Just neighbours with buckets forming frantic lines. Just families climbing out of attic windows, clutching children and cats. Just a city that has never imagined it could fall. And that is the heart of our story. You, dear friend, live in a world bound by timber, soot, and the illusion of safety. And while the night will fall gently over London, curling like smoke across the rooftops, what it hides is far from gentle. It is a spark, waiting, a whisper in the wind, a flicker of flame behind a baker's shuttered door. Tonight is your last night of peace, and so, as your head finds rest upon your pillow, you do not hear the scratch of ember beneath the oven stones. You do not see the glow growing behind the walls. You do not know that history is changing in that very moment. Sleep well, dear listener, for tomorrow the fire begins. The city slumbers. It is the early morning of Sunday, September 2nd, 1666. The bells have not yet rung, the streets are hushed, and the dark hangs low like a woolen curtain over London. There is a stillness so complete, it seems even the rats have paused their scurrying. From the river, a fog rolls in, thick and damp, muting the familiar creak of timber and the gentle lapping of water against old stone. And in one quiet bakery, nestled in the narrow length of Pudding Lane, a single flame stirs. It begins not with a roar, but a whisper, an ember that slips unnoticed from oven to wood, slipping into the cracks behind the hearth. Thomas Fariner, the baker, has already retired for the evening, along with his family and staff. The ovens were banked for the night, or so he believed. But heat is a living thing, and tonight, the fire has no intention of resting. You are there, tucked not far away, wrapped in your shawl against the chill. Perhaps you are dreaming of the harvest market, or of warm bread from Fariner's shop, your stomach remembering the scent of flour and ash. You do not stir as smoke begins to curl upward, thin and sly, toward the rafters. In a world without smoke, detectors or alarms, fire moves freely. It climbs the beams above the oven, finds the pitch between floorboards, licks its way into the very bones of the house. The bakery is timber-framed, like so many in the city, an intricate web of wood and tar and thatch, waiting only for breath, and the fire breathes. Within the hour, the upper floors are alight. Glass bottles crack, support beams pop and hiss as the heat gnaws through them. A servant, awakened by smoke, throws open a window and screams for help. But the street is quiet, and the neighbours are asleep. Still she cries, again and again, her voice swallowed by the thickening dark. By the time anyone rouses, the bakery is beyond salvation. You are startled awake, not by the blaze, but by shouting. Angry, confused, desperate, you rush to your window and see the night painted orange, pulsing like the breath of some enormous beast. The bakery is gone, a skeleton wrapped in flame. The fire has leapt, bold, brazen, to the house next door. People run into the streets, barefoot, disoriented. Children cling to mothers. Men carry whatever they can, blankets, strongboxes, a single chair. You too grab something, your cloak, your shoes, a handful of coins, and step out into a world transformed. There is a strange silence at first, as if everyone is waiting for someone else to take charge, but no one does. Buckets are fetched, but the water from the pumps is slow and sparse. There are no hoses, no hydrants. Leather buckets pass hand to hand in a frantic rhythm, but it is already too late. The fire dances across rooftops, drawn by the wind. You smell it now, sharp and biting, thick with pitch and smoke, and something deeper, the scent of burning lives. Wood crackles like bones, thatch hisses and collapses, sparks lift into the night sky, carried by a rising breeze that stokes the flames higher and farther. You turn your face from the heat, sweat already glistening on your brow. The fire spreads toward Fish Street Hill, and with it, panic. The narrowness of the streets becomes a curse. People clog the alleys, carts overturn, goods scatter. There is no clear path of escape. You try to push your way forward, but the heat is at your heels. Behind you, a scream rises. A girl calling for her father, lost in the smoke. You want to stop, to help, but others push you forward. The buildings here are tall, leaning, close enough that fire leaps from eave to eave like a fox over fences. Some brave souls attempt to pull houses down with hooks, trying to create fire breaks. But it is too disorganized. The mayor has not yet arrived. The fire judges no one. It devours poor and rich alike. You reach the edge of the Thames. Boats are being loaded, some charging passage, others ferrying friends. You beg for space on one, but the owner shouts you away. You see men throwing belongings into the water, believing they will return later to collect them. You watch a woman toss her wedding gown into a skiff, only to see it consumed by sparks as the wind shifts, and still the fire grows. You hear church bells ring now, not for prayer, but in alarm. Too late. The wind carries the blaze eastward, deeper into the city's heart. The flames stretch toward the warehouses along Thames Street, where barrels of oil, wine and tar await like silent conspirators. You wonder, should you run farther? Should you try to save something? But the fire answers you. A warehouse explodes. The force of it knocks you to your knees. Shards of wood rain from above. The sky is no longer dark, but crimson. Buildings fall like dominoes. Each collapse another blow to the city's spine. People flee in every direction. The ground beneath your feet feels hot. Too hot. You have no choice. You run. Not for glory or courage or heroism, but for survival. You do not think of your possessions nor your past. You do not even think of the fire itself, only of the breath in your lungs, the rhythm of your heart, and the hope that somewhere ahead there is cool air and safety. This is not a disaster you watch on parchment or read in newsprint. This is the end of your world, one timber at a time. And, still, no one truly knows how far it will go. Tonight, it is a fire in Pudding Lane. Tomorrow, it will be London ablaze. And you? You are only just beginning to understand that survival is no longer certain. Morning never truly comes, not in the way you once knew it. There is no soft golden glow spilling over the rooftops, no peaceful sounds of roosters or merchants beginning their day. There is only smoke, a low, choking grey that wraps the city. Like a funeral shroud, you awaken, if you ever truly slept, to the scent of burning pitch and wet ash. Your throat is dry. Your eyes sting. The night has stretched too long, and the fire that began as a flicker is now a storm of flame. You've made it through the first hours. You have fled from Pudding Lane. Perhaps you were lucky enough to find a wagon heading west. Perhaps you clutched the hand of a stranger and ran until your legs collapsed. Wherever you are now, perhaps on the edge of the markets, or sheltering beneath the arches of a crumbling stone wall, one thing is clear: London is not the same. You blink upward through a sky no longer blue, but bruised and blistered. Sparks drift like fireflies in slow, eerie descent. In the distance, a bell tolls again, long and low, perhaps from St. Magnus or St. Dunstan's, perhaps only a memory. Around you, others begin to rise from where they slept in alleyways or along the riverbank. Their faces are smudged, their eyes wide and red. Some weep, some whisper prayers, some simply stare, as if watching a dream unfold, one from which they cannot wake. but you must move. The fire is no longer in one place. It is many. It has spread beyond Pudding Lane, beyond Thames Street, beyond Fish Hill. It climbs and coils through the city like a serpent made of heat and hunger. And the wind, oh, the wind is cruel. It carries the blaze forward with relentless force, turning burning fragments into messengers of destruction. Thatched roofs catch fire with terrifying ease. Shops filled with oils and goods erupt in seconds. Warehouses packed with tallow and timber feed the inferno like banquet tables for a ravenous beast. You begin to walk, not with direction, but instinct. West, always west. Away from the wind, away from the rising orange behind you. The streets are packed now. Horses neigh in panic. Dogs bark and dart between legs. Children cry as they're pulled along by anxious hands. You hear a woman scream out a name, perhaps her husband's, perhaps a son lost in the crowd, but no one stops. The smoke is worse than the fire, some say. It coils low, burning your lungs with each breath. You tear a scrap of cloth from your sleeve, wet it with the last of your water and press it to your mouth. It helps, but only slightly. You pass the ruins of a chapel. Its wooden door is half melted, sagging inward. The stained glass, once coloured with saints and angels, now lies, shattered in blackened shards. The smell of incense lingers oddly beneath the reek of smoke, like a ghost refusing to be dismissed. Someone kneels in the rubble, fingers clasped in prayer. You do not stop. There is no time for piety now. By the time you reach Cheapside, once the beating commercial heart of the city, it is clear that no help is coming. Buildings fall in fiery arcs, collapsing into ash and rubble. The sounds are deafening, crashes, crackles, and the occasional wail. You spot a man trying to fight, the flames with a bucket, only to be pulled away by others. He fights them, weeping. It was his home, his shop, everything he knew, and it is gone. Word spreads through the panicked crowds. The king has taken notice. Charles II, it is said, has ordered that fire breaks be created, that whole rows of houses be pulled down to halt the fire's spread. Soldiers are seen, axes in hand, striking at doorframes and beams. But even this feels too slow. You realize something else, something cold and cruel. You have no idea where you are. The smoke has transformed the city. Familiar signs are gone, burned away. Landmarks lie hidden behind curtains of ash. You stumble past what might have been a tailor's shop, now a skeleton of charred beams. You pass a fountain that once trickled merrily, now cracked and dry. Everything is blurred by smoke, by fear, by the unfamiliarity of destruction. You reach a small square where people have gathered. Some sit in silence. Others argue about which way is safest. One man insists the fire is punishment for sin. Another accuses a foreigner of starting it. Tensions are rising, and with them, the risk. Because in times like these, fear is not the only danger. You continue on. It is late morning now. The sun should be high, but the sky is still dark. Ash falls like snow. A pigeon, its wings singed, flutters weakly at your feet. A cart laden with barrels rumbles past, its driver coughing violently into a kerchief. And then you hear it. A roar, not from the crowd, but from ahead. The fire has reached another cluster of warehouses. Barrels of brandy ignite. The explosion is thunderous, throwing a wave of heat so intense it forces everyone to the ground. You cover your head and curl inward, feeling the pulse of the blast through your bones. When you dare to look up, the skyline has changed again. Another church gone, another street erased. You think of home, of the simple things, your boots left, by the hearth, the bread rising in the kitchen, the threadbare tapestry on your wall. You will never see them again. You know this now, not with panic, but with the quiet clarity of one who has passed through shock and into sorrow. You are a refugee in your own city, and still the fire burns. The Thames has always been London's spine, a ribbon of shifting grey, around which the city grew and bent. It fed the markets, bore the trade ships, and carried the prayers of saints and sinners alike down its ever-flowing course. In calmer days, its waters shimmered with the reflections of tall masts and market stalls, its shores lined with fishmongers, ferrymen, and children chasing gulls. But now, the river is no sanctuary. You make your way there in desperation, drawn by stories, shared in frantic whispers, that some are escaping by boat, that the water cannot burn, that if only you reach the banks, you might live. And so you walk, your shoes thin, your lungs burning from smoke, your heart drumming like a war drum in your chest. The air grows thicker the closer you come. Ash rains steadily now, covering everything in pale dust. You can barely make out shapes more than 10 yards ahead. The fire has not yet reached this quarter, but the wind carries it with frightening speed, turning dry wood into torches before a single scream can leave the mouth. And then, at last, you see the water. The Thames rolls slow and wide beneath a bruised sky, but it is no longer peaceful. It churns with panicked bodies, rowboats overloaded, barges dragging half-burning belongings, and watermen shouting over one another as they haggle for coin or push back the desperate. Children wail. Mothers cry out for husbands lost in the smoke. Some have thrown themselves into the river, believing anything is better than the suffocating streets behind them. You run forward, but there is no room. Every boat is full, some dangerously so, teetering under the weight of hope and fear. One long barge, filled with furniture, dogs, and what appears to be an entire kitchen cupboard, lists sideways before it sinks slowly beneath the surface, its passengers screaming as cold water closes in. A ferryman shouts above the din, "No! More! I'll take no more!" A man tries to climb aboard anyway, grabbing at the side. The boatman pushes him back with an oar. Another shoves forward. A fight breaks out. The boat spins away. You realize something then, something sharp and devastating. Unless you are rich, unless you are powerful, unless you were born with a name that carries weight among dock workers and guards, the river is not your path to safety. It is only a mirror reflecting your helplessness. You try anyway. Of course you do. You shout for passage. You wave coins, your last few. You plead, your voice cracking from smoke. A young boy hears you. He looks back, hesitates. His mother pulls him away. The sky above grows darker still, not with night, but with soot. Clouds shaped by fire itself blot out the day. The water turns from grey to black. A flock of birds, confused and choking, scatter blindly overhead. One drops into the water near your feet and floats, motionless. You fall to your knees. All around you, others have done the same. Some collapse in prayer, some in grief, some simply because they have run out of strength. You sit on the embankment and feel the heat behind you, ever creeping closer. The fire is coming for the riverfront now. Warehouses of oil and hemp crack open like eggshells. Sparks catch on the sails of docked ships. One brigantine bursts into flames so quickly it seems unreal, as if a dragon had breathed upon it. The crew leap into the water, some aflame, some sinking before they can even scream. And the river, once a saviour, now reflects only ruin. You rise again, stumbling. There are rumours that King Charles himself is coordinating relief along the banks, that soldiers are pulling people to safety, that barges from Westminster are coming with food and blankets. You see none of this, only chaos. Still, you press forward. You make it to a cluster of carts parked near the custom house. A family is loading their goods onto a donkey cart, arguing bitterly over what to leave behind. A girl clutches a violin, her father trying to tear it from her hands in favour of his trade tools. You offer to help lift a chest. They allow you, but no more. There is no space for you on the cart. You walk on. As you move away from the river and back toward the crowded inland streets, you hear a sound like 1,000 cannons. Another roof collapsing, perhaps a church tower. The ground shakes faintly. People scream anew. A woman collapses against a wall, sobbing into her apron. A priest rushes by, dragging a bucket of water toward the docks. You don't even know if he has anyone to save. Everywhere is smoke. Everywhere is flame. You stumble into a courtyard near St. Paul's, only to find that the cathedral's great doors are closed. People are pressing against them, pounding, seeking refuge within. But the building, so ancient, so vast, is not immune to fire. Already, embers fall from its rooftop. One strikes your shoulder, searing through your cloak. You cry out and pull, the fabric free, stamping on it. Inside the cathedral, you're told, books and manuscripts, treasures centuries old, have been stored for safekeeping. But the fire does not care for ink or parchment. It will consume knowledge and innocence alike. You look back toward the river one last time, and it looks back, silent, carrying ash instead of salvation. The fire is behind you. The water is before you. And in between? Only the long, uncertain road through a city that no longer remembers its name. You begin walking again. There is no other choice. There are moments when the sky itself seems to break. You notice it not in a sudden crash or shout, but in the steady change of air. A shift, a silence. Then slowly the first flakes begin to fall. Not snow nor rain, but ash. Pale, soft, persistent, as if the heavens, mourning what has become of London, have begun to weep soot instead of tears. It settles on your shoulders like grey feathers. It clings to your lashes. The more it falls, the more the city disappears around you. Buildings become blurred shapes. Streets dissolve into shadows. What once felt like home now resembles a ghost town, caught mid-dream, drifting between memory and ruin. You are no longer sure what time it is. Perhaps it is late afternoon, or morning again. There is no sun to guide you, no stars, just the dim glow of firelight behind thick clouds, and the ash that continues to fall. You walk through it, slowly. Each footstep sends a little puff into the air. The ground is soft in places, crusted with charred fragments of rooftops and beams. The smell is overwhelming now, not just smoke, but the acrid reek of burned paint, oil, parchment, flesh. You no longer gag. Your senses are dulled, your mind numb. You pass a shop you once knew, a cheesemonger with blue-tiled walls and a sign shaped like a wheel. It is gone. The frame still stands somehow, but hollow. Inside, everything is black. A single wheel of cheese lies melted on the threshold, untouched amid the destruction. Next to it, a body. You stop. It is a man, perhaps in his 30s, face obscured by soot. One arm rests over his chest as though in sleep, but there is no motion, no breath. You step closer, drawn by instinct, before pulling yourself away. This, you realize, is no longer an emergency. This is a massacre, not by sword or musket, but by fire. There are others like him. Some you see from afar, figures lying still amid ash and beam, shapes slumped in corners or half buried beneath the collapse of their homes. You wonder who they were, what they loved, whether they ran or waited or prayed. You wonder too if someone is looking for them, if someone will ever know. You push forward. Your path takes you near Newgate Street. Once busy with carts and conversation, it is now an open corridor of ruin. The prison, you are told, has been emptied, its inmates loosed upon the chaos. Some say they fled into the fire. Others, that they joined looters picking through homes, while the owners fled. Still others claim they took up arms to help defend what little remained. But no one knows. Rumours fly faster than the flames. You see two boys crouched beneath a crumbling doorway, clutching each other. Their faces are black with soot, their eyes too old. You offer a piece of dried bread from your pocket, one of your last. They hesitate, then take it in silence. There is no gratitude, no speech, just the shared understanding of hunger. This, too, is the fire's legacy. Not just the death of buildings or relics, but the erosion of kindness. In the beginning, people helped. Buckets were passed hand to hand. Strangers shared carts, opened doors, lifted children from crumbling steps. But that was 2 days ago. Now it is everyone for themselves. Now every shadow might hold a thief or a corpse. The fire has not only destroyed the city, it has unstitched its soul. You pause near what used to be a church garden. The iron gate is half melted, its spires twisted like wax. The gravestones are covered in soot. Ash falls across the nameplates until they vanish beneath grey. A dog lies sleeping beside one. Or perhaps not sleeping. You don't look long enough to find out. In the centre of the square stands a preacher. He wears no robe, only a torn coat and soot-streaked face. He shouts verses into the dark, quoting Revelation and thunder. His hands are raised toward the sky, beseeching the heavens to stop. People pass him without listening. His voice breaks mid-psalm. Still, he cries out, "Repent! Repent!" But the sky does not answer. The ash continues to fall. By evening, you reach Holborn, or what is left of it. Entire blocks are gone. Flames still dance in the distance. You hear that the fire has reached Fleet Street, that even the Inns of Court are threatened, that the western edge, once thought safe, now trembles under heat. You wonder fleetingly where the king is. Some say he rides through the streets, that he carries a bucket, shoulder to shoulder with soldiers. Others say he has retreated to Hampton Court, leaving orders behind. You do not know which tale to believe. Perhaps both are true, perhaps neither. Truth has become a luxury. You sit at last, beneath a broken archway. Your legs are weak, your eyes heavy. The world moves like fog, and each breath you take tastes of wood and loss. Around you, others rest, too tired to move, too afraid to stop. The fire crackles in the distance, a never-ending whisper of hunger, and above you, the sky continues to fall. There comes a moment, even in the fiercest blaze, when things go quiet. Not because the fire is gone, it never truly rests, but because exhaustion wraps itself around the bones of every survivor. Like a great hand pressing down, it stills even the wildest hearts. And in that hush, more terrifying than the roar of flames, you begin to feel the weight of everything you've lost. You sit against a cold wall, its stones streaked with soot and blood. You don't remember when you last slept. Not truly. You may have closed your eyes. You may have drifted for a moment, curled in a doorway, head cradled on your knees. But real sleep, the kind that brings dreams, warmth, rest, it hasn't come since the first crackle of fire split the night. Around you, others gather in the semi-ruins of what was once a merchant square. The statues here are scorched, the stone benches blistered. Yet somehow, it is still a place where people seek refuge, as if by huddling close, you might keep the fire at bay. Not with water or tools, but with sheer human presence. There is little talking now, only the quiet shuffling of feet, the scrape of wood being gathered, bits of half-burnt furniture and broken carts. Not to build, not to flee, but for small pitiful fires to warm cold fingers and boil what little water remains. Someone near you has a kettle, another has a cloth bag with dried peas. A makeshift soup is attempted, weak and grey-green, its steam thin in the smoky air. You are offered a cup. You nod, silent. It tastes of ashes and old tin, but you drink it anyway, because it is warm, because it is something. That is how hope survives in times like this, not in grand rescues or grander speeches, but in tiny, bitter cups of soup, in the shared silence of strangers, in a blanket passed from one shaking pair of hands to another. Still, even here, fire remains the ever-present beast. Its breath is distant for now, but the wind is fickle. One shift, and your haven will become a furnace. Everyone knows it. No one says it aloud, but you see the glances, upward, eastward, toward the orange light that pulses just over the ruined rooftops, toward the smoke that thickens every hour. Someone has started carving tally marks into a door frame. You watch as he scratches the 6th mark, slowly, with the edge of a broken knife. One for each day, or maybe each night, or maybe each time the fire jumped another street. No one asks, no one questions. You merely count with him, in your head, and wait. A group of children sit near the fountain. It hasn't run in days. They play with burnt pieces of wood, drawing pictures in the soot, a crooked house, a stick figure holding a flower, a bird with one wing. They giggle softly. You can barely hear it. It is the first laughter you've heard in hours. It startles you, and yet it wounds you more than silence. You wonder what they remember, if they remember. If this will be their oldest memory, the falling ash, the cracked stone, the way the sky looked when the world seemed to end. Or perhaps, by some mercy, they will forget. Perhaps time will blur it until it becomes only a story, something whispered by candlelight, a tale too terrible to be believed. Your body aches, your limbs feel stiff, swollen, your skin is dry from heat and grime. You reach up to wipe your forehead and realize your hand is shaking. Not from fear, that passed long ago, but from fatigue. Deep, marrow-level fatigue. You cannot run anymore. If the fire comes, you will walk, or crawl, or not move at all. A man stumbles into the square. His face is burned, his clothes half melted. He holds something wrapped in cloth, a child perhaps. He doesn't speak, just sinks to his knees beside a broken bench and stays there. No one asks, "What happened?" You don't need to. A woman nearby is plaiting her hair. Her hands move slowly, methodically, as if it matters. As if braiding her hair brings order to the disorder, dignity to the ruin. You find comfort in it, in the ritual, in the effort, in the small defiance of grooming against the chaos of flame. You begin to feel it again, that horrible humming thought. There is no one coming. You've heard talk of the king, of the Duke of York commanding lines of firefighters, of General Monk bringing men from the tower, but you've seen no soldiers, no hoses, no lines of coordinated effort. You've seen only panic and smouldering ruin. You think of your family, if they are still somewhere behind you, or ahead, or gone. You think of your house, whether the flames found it. You think of yourself, not in fear, not even in grief, but in wonder. How have I lived through this? And then, gently, cruelly, comes the question that never sleeps. For how much longer? There are no answers in the ash, only wind, only the scent of scorched linen and iron and sorrow. You stand, not because you have a destination, but because your legs demand to move, because stillness is too close to death, because your mind, dulled though it is, cannot surrender entirely. You begin to walk, through the grey, through the silence, through a city you no longer recognise yet still call home. London is a city of churches. Before the fire, their bells were the music of daily life. They rang to mark the hour, to call the faithful, to mourn the dead and celebrate the living. Great towers rose above the wooden homes, their stones ancient and proud, the steeples piercing even the thickest fog. Some were small parish churches, others vast cathedrals with carved angels watching over the streets. But now they fall. You walk slowly through what was once the religious spine of the city, where the spires of St. Lawrence Jewry, St. Bride's, and St. Mary Le Bow once caught the first light of dawn. Their bells, once so certain and reassuring, are silent now, not from reverence, but because there is nothing left to ring. You pass the ruins of St. Olave's. Its tower leans, blackened and crumbling. Inside, charred pews lay scattered like broken ribs. A baptismal font sits half melted, the carved marble edges now rough to the touch. A wooden cross, once proudly fixed behind the altar, now lies split down the middle, its edges singed, its shadow gone. The fire does not spare sanctity. Stone is no match for heat this fierce. Even the churches built to endure centuries cannot withstand what London now endures. Lead roofing has melted, dripping like molten wax onto the flagstone floors. The heat has warped the very air. Glass once coloured in sacred stories is now only shards underfoot. You tread carefully, though you do not know why. There is no priest here, no choir, no candles, and yet something within you whispers respect. Perhaps the echo of your mother's voice in prayer, or the memory of your first communion. Perhaps it's the stillness, which feels almost sacred after days of running and ash. You hear a sound. It is faint, a creaking, a soft groan of timber above. Then, the sudden crack of collapse. You step back just in time to avoid a falling beam, which crashes where you stood seconds before, spraying sparks and dust. Even ruins are dangerous. You move on, to St. Mary le Bow. This church was famous once, its bell known far beyond the city. To be a true Cockney, they said, one must be born within the sound of bow bells. Now, the tower is gone. The bell lies on the ground, cracked in half like a dropped chalice, silent as a stone. You run your hand over its surface. It is still, warm. A boy stands near the apse. He is perhaps 10, holding what looks like a piece of altar cloth. His face is blank. You ask him where his family is, but he does not reply. You kneel and offer him water. He takes it without a word, drinks, and runs off into the smoke. You do not follow. What would you do if you caught him? Where would you take him? There are no shelters left, no one to claim him. Only the fire, and the thinning air, and the sky that refuses to change colour. A group of men passes by. They wear rough clothing, armed with picks and hooks. Their leader carries a small horn, and they shout orders as they march. You overhear the words Firebreak and St. Paul's. Your heart sinks. Surely not St. Paul's. But yes, it must be. The fire does not know dignity or distinction. It has reached even Ludgate Hill, where Sir Christopher Wren's mighty cathedral, unfinished yet already revered, stands proud over the city. You follow, drawn not by duty or desire, but a strange, quiet grief. The cathedral appears through the smoke, like a ghost ship. Its walls still stand, but the great wooden scaffolding that encases part of it is already ablaze. Sparks race up the sides, licking the beams, dancing beneath the arched windows. People are inside. They had stored books here, thousands of volumes, from personal libraries, from university halls, from homes where learning had once been a luxury. Believing the cathedral safe, they had hauled their treasures here, hoping stone would shelter ink. They were wrong. You see them now, pages floating upward in the heat, curling mid-air like falling leaves. Psalters, herbals, sermons, poems, all reduced to ash with the gentlest touch of flame. The great doors creak open for a moment, and a man runs out, his arms filled with books. He trips. They scatter. He cries out, not in pain, but in sorrow. Inside, someone else screams. You turn away. There is nothing more you can do. St. Paul's dome shudders. The fire moves like water now, up walls, across beams, over the roof. A slow ripple of destruction, almost beautiful in its completeness. And you stand, helpless, watching one of the greatest symbols of the city begin to crumble. It feels like watching a crown melt. You remember the bells, each one cast by hand, named, blessed. You wonder where they are now, if they cracked and fell, if they remain in place, melting slowly with every rising degree, if they too knew their end had come. You do not cry. There are no tears left, only silence, only the knowledge that even the house of God could not withstand the hunger of fire. You walk away, not in anger, not even in fear, but with reverence as if leaving a funeral. The smoke follows you. There is a peculiar strangeness in how the days blur. You once marked time by the chime of bells, the rhythm of trade, the light falling across your shutters. But now, the hours crawl and twist. There are no clocks you can hear, no familiar cues, only firelight, constant, flickering, cruel, painting everything in the same endless shade of ruin. You are not sure how many days it has been, 3 perhaps, or 4. The sun, if it exists, no longer shines. The sky has been cloaked in thick smoke, not black like midnight, but a sickly ochre hue that glows from within, like parchment held to a candle. Every hour feels like the same hour. Every night bleeds into the day. You wander through what remains of Fleet Street, once loud with the songs of printers and the scent of ink and paper. Now, it is hollow. You step over blackened beams, charred signs. The Fox and Quill, the King's Inkpot. These once familiar names are little more than ashes curling beneath your boots. A man crouches near a broken press, trying to salvage sheets from the debris. He brushes them gently with a gloved hand, his eyes wide, his breath rapid. His lips move in silence, reading lines that no longer fully exist. Half a poem, perhaps, or part of a news pamphlet meant to announce tomorrow's market. But there is no market now, no shops to fill, no stalls to raise, no voices to call out the price of apples or silk. You pass a fruit seller's barrow overturned, its contents long gone. Only a single scorched orange remains, split open, shriveled from the heat. You take nothing. There is nowhere to carry things. Instead, you walk. There is a peculiar comfort in motion, as if by continuing forward, you might eventually step beyond the fire's reach. But London is vast, and the fire vaster still. It does not burn in a single line. It skips. It doubles back. It devours streets spared the day before. Some speak of patterns, others whisper of curses. You do not listen anymore. You pass a group clustered in a narrow alley, their faces smudged, their hands full of bundles. One man clutches a violin, its strings broken. A woman holds 3 books pressed to her chest. Another has a mirror, small and cracked. Their eyes are wary, guarded. You nod as you pass. No one speaks. They are waiting, you think, waiting for the fire to decide. You hear once again the rumour that the French have done this, or the Dutch, that saboteurs lit the bakery on purpose, that papists or radicals planted the flames as revenge. People need something, someone to blame. But the fire doesn't care. It burns without prejudice. It punishes all equally. Still, you feel the tension growing. In quiet corners, the anger simmers, not loud, not yet, but soon. You can sense it in how people watch each other, how they hold their belongings tighter, how kindness has turned into suspicion. You stumble across a boy not more than 8, sitting in the shell of a home. He is turning, a spoon slowly in his hands, staring into the space where a fireplace once stood. You ask if he is alone. He nods. You offer him a bit of bread. He does not reach for it. His gaze is far away. You leave it beside him and walk on. You cross Chancery Lane and find what remains of a bookshop. The walls have collapsed inward, but a few shelves cling to life. You brush ash from a few volumes. Most are singed. One, somehow, is nearly whole. A collection of sermons bound in red leather. The gold lettering glints faintly beneath a smear of soot. You carry it with you for a while, though you do not know why. Perhaps it feels like defiance, to hold something unburned, to walk with a book when the world is falling apart. Or perhaps it is simply a comfort, weight in your hands, words waiting to be read in a time when stories seem to be dying. Night comes again. You think it is night. There is no moon, only the relentless pulse of fire on the horizon. The glow rises and falls like breathing. You settle beneath the awning of a crumbling warehouse, among others who have gathered in silence. No fire is built. There is no wood safe enough to burn. And no one wants to tempt the wind. A man sings quietly near you. The tune is familiar, Greensleeves maybe, but the words are wrong or forgotten. He hums more than he sings, eyes closed. A woman beside him hums too, her hands wrapped in the hem of her skirt. You feel for a moment as if you could sleep, not truly, but enough. Enough to shut your eyes, enough to drift. The ground is cold. Your body aches. The smoke curls around your limbs like a blanket. Thin, sour, relentless. Still, you doze. You dream of water, of rain, of a great deluge washing away the fire and lifting the city clean. You dream of bells ringing again, not in alarm, but in joy. But when you wake, there is no rain, only the fire, still breathing, still hungry, still here. At some point in every great fire, you are forced to make a choice. Not between good and evil, not between right and wrong, but between what you carry and what you leave. Between the objects that once made up your life and the breath in your lungs that begs to keep you alive. This morning, if it can be called morning, you face that decision. You awaken near Cripplegate, beneath a pile of damp cloaks and scorched canvas. A small band of survivors huddled together here in the night, sharing scraps of food, a bottle of stale cider, and little else. No one spoke much. No one asked names. You shared warmth, not words. Now you rise with aching limbs and a blistered throat and take inventory of all you have left. A small pouch of coins, the red leather book you found, a kerchief soaked in soot, and a broken belt knife dulled by ash and damp. It feels like both everything and nothing. Around you, others are doing the same. Sorting through sacks and bundles, deciding what to keep. One woman holds a cracked locket and a worn pair of shoes. She stares at them for several minutes, as though the fire itself had sent her a riddle. She tucks the shoes into her pack, then kisses the locket and lays it on the ground. A man nearby carries a single chair on his back. A chair. Its legs are tied with rope around his shoulders. The wood is scorched, one leg half gone. You wonder how far he thinks he will get, dragging this fragment of his old life with him. But you don't say anything. Who are you to question what grief asks us to preserve? You rise. The fire has pushed westward again. You hear that it's reached Smithfield. Market, that the flames have kissed the edge of Farringdon without. The streets there are wider, the buildings more spaced. Some believe this will finally slow the fire, but no one truly knows. And so, you walk again. Not because there is a destination, but because movement has become your only strategy for survival. You cannot stay in one place long. The fire finds the still, the hesitant. It punishes those who wait. You pass a row of houses where the flames have passed. The shells remain. Timber bones, smoking rafters. One still holds a table, perfectly, upright, though everything else around it has turned to charcoal. A loaf of bread, untouched, sits in the center. You step inside, not out of hunger, but curiosity. The walls are scorched black, the floor brittle beneath your boots. The bread crumbles to dust in your hand. Still, you linger. There is a quiet here, thick and mournful, as if the house itself remembers, as if it waits for its owners to return. You know they won't. You leave behind the loaf's remains and step outside. At the corner, two boys, perhaps brothers, are debating over a pile of belongings. One wants to carry their father's tools, a hammer, a chisel, a length of rope. The other clutches a cloth doll and a cracked lantern. Their voices rise. The older one shouts. The younger won't let go. Their mother, exhausted and ash-faced, says nothing. She simply takes the hammer, places it in one bag, and then, after a pause, picks up the doll and places it in her own. There is no logic to these decisions. Only love. Only loss. You reach a small square where someone has drawn lines. In the dust, boxes, names, even prayers scrawled in coal on stone. Here stood the house of Thomas and Eliza. "Forgive us, Lord, for we did not know." One reads simply, "I left the key beneath the stair." What do you leave behind? You sit for a while and think. You think of your first mug, the one your father gave you when you came of age, of the small box where you kept buttons and pins, of the mirror with the chipped edge that once showed you your mother's face, combing her hair in the quiet dawn. You remember the scent of her lavender soap, the way she sang under her breath when she cooked, the way she prayed when she thought you weren't listening. You think of the fire not as a wave now, but as a thief, a clever one. It did not snatch everything all at once. It took slowly, with precision. One street, one memory, one name at a time. It is strange to grieve things. Not people, but things. A book, a kettle, a scrap of fabric. And yet, you do. Because they held your stories. Because they held you. You rise. From a doorway, a boy hands you a chalk stick. He doesn't speak, only nods toward a stretch of wall that remains unburned. People have been writing their names here, perhaps in hope, perhaps in warning, perhaps simply to prove they were here. You take the chalk. You write only your first name. It feels like enough. And then, like always, you move on. The sky brightens slightly, not from sun but from clearer wind. The smoke thins in places, revealing more of the horizon. And in that distant space, across the ruins and smoke, you see roofs untouched. A hill, green, a cluster of trees, and something inside you lifts. Not quite hope, but the memory of it. Eventually, the city breaks. It is not the fire that does it, not alone. Fire destroys walls, towers, steeples. But what breaks the city, what unravels it from within, is the sheer tide of humanity pouring from every gate, every alley, every home and church and shop. London cannot contain her people, so they spill outward, and so do you. The road out of the city, north and west, was never built for such an exodus. Cart paths and bridle lanes, once used by merchants and milkmaids, are now rivers of people. You join them, your steps slow, your body aching, as you pass the old stone gate where once tolls were paid and taxes counted. No one collects coin now. No one checks your name. The only toll is breath, and you pay it with every step. To your right, an apothecary hauls a box on a wheelbarrow, his wife atop it, coughing into a rag. To your left, a midwife carries an infant, swaddled in singed linen, her face streaked with tears. A priest chants softly as he walks, his voice trembling. Ahead, a group of city porters argue about whether the fire will reach Clerkenwell. One says yes. One says it already has. No one agrees, but all continue walking. The fields beyond London are not so far, and yet it feels endless. Each step away from the city is a step into something unknown. You crest a small rise and see them at last. Wide open pastures dotted with tents, carts, wagons and haphazard cloth shelters. Here, on the outskirts, among the hedgerows and farmlands, thousands have gathered. Refugees, but not the kind from stories. Not starving, barefoot, faceless masses. These are Londoners. Masons, candlemakers, sailors, bakers, tailors, widows, midwives, apprentices and aldermen alike, cast out not by sword or siege, but by fire. The fire that respected no title, no street, no lineage. The fire that made equals of all. You find a place in the grass beneath a young ash tree. Your limbs fold slowly. You remove your boots, thick, with ash and cracked from heat. Your feet are blistered, the skin torn. Someone nearby offers a cloth dipped in creek water. You nod your thanks. Around you, camp life stirs. Children chase a wheel down a slope, laughing for the first time in days. A woman makes soup from turnips and dried beans, stirring it in a pot blackened by soot. A group of men discuss the fire, in hushed tones, how far it has reached, whether the tower will hold, if the navy yard is in danger. One man swears that the king himself passed by earlier on horseback. Another saw no such thing. Truth, in these moments, is slippery. The world has become rumour and smoke. You stretch out on your back. Above, the clouds are streaked with orange and grey. A single hawk circles lazily, oblivious to the ruin below. For a long time, you listen to the wind pass through tall grass and the faint sound of sobbing not far off. It is a small girl, clutching a comb and calling for her sister. You think of your own name. You whisper it aloud, just once, to be sure it still belongs to you. In the distance, bells toll, but not from within the city. They are farm bells, calling workers to fields that no longer matter. The harvest is forgotten, the grain uncut. The fields now serve another purpose. They are sanctuary. A man nearby is sketching the skyline with charcoal on scrap parchment. What remains of it? You watch, as he marks where St. Paul's used to be, then erases it with the side of his thumb. He does not speak. You close your eyes and dream. For the first time in days, the air is cool. Your body softens into the ground. You see your old street again, before the fire. The shutters open, the bread warm. A neighbour calls out, "Good morning." A dog barks. Your hands smell of flour. There is laughter. Then, flame. You wake with a start, your chest tight, but no fire this time, only dusk. The camp glows with candlelight now, small fires, carefully watched. A man sings a folk song about a fox and a farmer. Two women gather herbs in a basket. A small girl with ash-streaked cheeks offers you an apple. It is bruised, but sweet. You thank her, and for the briefest of moments, you feel alive again. Not whole, not healed, but alive. You think of all you've lost, and then you think of those who never reached the fields, who never left the alleyways or rooftops, who waited too long, or ran too slowly, who believed their walls would protect them. You wonder, quietly, if survival is a gift or a sentence. You do not know, but as night folds over the hills and the stars peer through ash-veiled skies, you find yourself breathing, and that is enough. For now, surviving the fire is not the end. It is merely the beginning of a different kind of suffering, one without flames, but not without pain. And as you sit beneath the quiet branches of the ash tree, the sky still bruised with smoke and the air sharp with soot, you begin to understand what it means to endure what others did not. You are alive, but you are not whole. The camp has grown overnight. You wake to the sound of horses, the rustle of carts arriving, the creak of wheels laden with hastily bundled belongings. Entire families come now, some with their homes reduced to bundles, others with nothing at all but the clothes on their backs. A mother clutches a chicken in one hand, a toddler in the other. A man pushes a wheelbarrow holding only a single cracked painting and a scorched Bible. No one asks for names anymore. There are too many to count. You walk through the camp slowly, your limbs stiff, your body starved for rest, but unable to remain still. A makeshift soup line winds through the trampled grass. A pot steams faintly at the end, guarded by a woman with red sleeves and soot-blackened cheeks. She offers you a ladle of broth, thin, warm, and faintly sweet, carrot maybe, or onion. You thank her with your eyes. Words come slowly now. Food is scarce. Not because there isn't any, not yet, but because the roads are clogged, the shops gone, the distribution broken. The fire has not only burned the city, but severed its veins. There is no market, no trade, no coin that holds its value. Hunger rises not like a fire, but like a tide, steadily, without mercy. You sit near a group sharing bread and pickled eggs. A woman tears her crust in half and hands you a piece. You nod, then eat slowly, chewing each bite as though it were the last. It may be. The fire still burns. No one knows when it will stop. Some say the wind is changing again. Some say the flames are headed toward Westminster. Others say the tower's cellars are in danger of explosion. Everyone speaks in warnings. No one speaks in hope. You meet a man with scorched boots and bleeding fingers. He was a stonemason once. Now he digs with his bare hands at the edge of the camp, carving a trench for water runoff. "The fire took my trade," he says softly. "So now I dig. Better to work than to remember." You help him for a while, not out of duty, but out of need. Because sitting still feels like surrender. Because your hands too remember what it was to shape, to build, to hold something that did not burn. A boy approaches later with a bandage and offers it to you. His voice is hoarse. "My father was a barber surgeon," he says. "He taught me how." You accept it, wrapping your wrist where a splinter from the church ruins cut you days before. The cloth is rough. The knot he ties is gentle. There is kindness, even now, but it feels like an ember in the dark. That night, the grief begins to rise. Not loudly, not all at once, but in little pockets of silence that settle between conversations. In the way people begin to look at one another, not with panic now, but with the distant eyes of mourning. You see it in a mother folding a shirt no longer worn, in a man carving a name into wood, in a child calling out a question to someone who never answers. You sit at the edge of camp and watch the sky. The stars are faint tonight, veiled by smoke, but visible. It is the first time you've seen them in days. Their dim light feels cold, impersonal, ancient. They have watched fires before. They will watch again. You think of your own street, of your neighbours, of your bed, your boots, your books, of your father's pipe and the creak of your stair, of the wash basin you filled each morning and the spoon you used to stir porridge. Gone. Gone. Not with ceremony or song, but with heat and silence. Tears come finally. They sting your face, tracing lines through the grime. You do not sob. You do not wail. You simply sit and let them fall. The only water that has touched your cheeks in days. You do not hide them. No one would mock you now. Everyone in this camp has cried. Some in public, some alone, some only in dreams. You lie back, watching the sky. One star flickers, then two. And in that moment, you remember something that feels like a whisper. A lesson, perhaps. The fire has taken everything, but not the sky, not your breath, not your memory, and, perhaps, not your will. Survival is a quiet act, a stubborn act. It is not heroic or grand. It is waking up again tomorrow and doing what must be done. It is taking the next bite, sowing the next tear, lighting the next candle, even when you fear it might burn. You close your eyes, and sleep comes, not restfully, but deep enough to dream. And in that dream, you walk again, not through ash, but through the streets you remember, the ones whole and laughing. The bells ring. The bread is warm. And your name is spoken aloud by someone who loves you. For a moment, it is enough. At dawn, you wake with dirt on your cheek and a stone pressing into your spine. The fire has not come to the fields in the night, but its breath is still on the wind. It carries the scent of scorched grain, burned lime mortar, and something else, fainter, bitterer, grief perhaps made into vapor. Your limbs are stiff. The makeshift bandage on your wrist has loosened. You retie it in silence, watching as others in the camp begin to stir. The world feels less like a refuge today, more like a waiting room for something that refuses to arrive. You hear a whisper from one of the women nearby. They say the fire is weakening. You do not hope, not yet. Instead, you rise and begin the slow walk toward the eastern edge of the field, where a narrow path leads back toward the city's edge. Not the burning heart, but the parts left behind. The outskirt lanes, the half-spared streets, places where the fire licked but did not devour. You are not the only one. Others walk with you, scattered like seeds on a breeze, Most say nothing. Some carry baskets. One man has a cart with a broken wheel that squeals as he pulls it behind him. They are not going to reclaim what was lost. They know better. They go to see, to lay eyes on the wreckage, to map the pain, to witness the bones of the city that once held them. The road beneath your feet has changed. Where once cobblestones ran clean and orderly, now there are ruts dug by panicked carts, streaks of soot, piles of debris swept to the side. You pass the skeleton of a burned signpost. The letters are melted, but you recognize the shape. This is where you used to turn toward the market square. Now, nothing remains but warped metal and scorched brick. A woman kneels near a garden wall, fingers brushing through blackened soil. "I had roses here," she murmurs. "You keep walking." The city appears in fragments. Here, a chimney that still stands like a monument. There, a window frame, its glass melted, its curtains turned to ash. A shop sign hangs by a single nail, swinging gently in the wind. A child picks up a charred doll, then lays it back down as though it too might still be sleeping. You pass, by St. Giles without Cripplegate, or what remains of it. The stone walls are cracked, but upright. The door is gone. Inside, the air smells of wet ashes and old incense. Someone has laid a bundle of wildflowers at the altar. Their colours are bright: blue cornflowers, yellow tansy, crimson poppies. They do not belong here, not now. And yet, they do. Outside, you meet a woman who speaks in whispers. "I found my husband's ring," she says. "Just there, in the rubble. It was still warm." You offer her a nod. There are no right words, only the weight of listening. Farther along, you find the remains of what used to be a schoolhouse. The chalkboard is scorched, but a phrase is still visible in faint white lines. "God, keep us safe." A prayer, perhaps, from the final lesson, or a child's message, written in fear. There are no answers here, only remnants. You reach your own street, at least where your street should be. But the landmarks are gone. The shutters you once painted, the cracked stoop where you left your boots, the rosebush outside your neighbour's door, all vanished, buried under the quiet tyranny of fire. You walk through the blackened earth, pacing it out. Here, perhaps, was your front room. There, the kitchen. You kneel where your bed once stood and dig a little with your hands. The dirt is dry and your fingers turn grey with soot. You find nothing. No keepsake, no token, no proof of your life. And yet, in the act of digging, you feel something settle. Not comfort, not closure, but presence. A knowing. You were here. You lived. And now you remember. From your satchel, you draw out the red leather book you saved. You had nearly forgotten it. Its spine is cracked and the pages slightly warped from damp and heat. You open it to the centre and with a piece of charcoal, write a name in the margin. Your name. Then, beneath it, "I stood here after the fire." You tuck it back into your satchel and you rise. Other survivors pass by. Some glance toward you, offering faint nods. There is no need for introductions. Grief recognizes grief. Loss has its own language, spoken in silence, in soot-streaked faces, in the slow gait of those walking through what remains. Someone nearby begins to sing, softly, like a lullaby. The tune is familiar, old, a song sung in inns and kitchens, passed down from mothers to daughters. It fills the broken street with something fragile, something human. The notes tremble, but they do not break. You hum along. You walk the rest of the way in quiet reverie, collecting no souvenirs, taking nothing but memory. London is wounded, but she breathes still, and so do you. There are few things in life so feared as fire driven by wind. It moves with mindless purpose, swift and brutal, unpredictable as a beast startled in the dark. It turns corners before you think it might. It leaps alleys as though they were ditches, and when the wind is at its back, it does not creep. It charges. But what happens when the wind changes? On the fourth day, perhaps the fifth, no one is sure anymore, the fire's fury slows. Not from weariness, for flames do not tire, but from the shift in breath that passes over the city. The wind, which once howled eastward like a war cry, begins to fade, and then, slowly, gently, it turns, and with it, so does the fate of what little remains. You hear it before you see it. Not the roar of flames this time, but a strange and unfamiliar quiet, the kind that presses against your ears. The wind is still. The smoke hangs thick in the air, but it no longer flies. It drifts. You are in the field still, though farther east now, closer to the edge. You and a small group had walked again that morning, hoping to find word of what remains of the city. What streets stood, what buildings had survived, what the fire had not claimed. At first, it felt like a reprieve. The fire's edge had stopped just short of the temple precinct. You had seen men there forming proper lines at last. Soldiers with buckets, sailors with long hooks, breaking down buildings before the flames reached them. For the first time since the great burning began, there was resistance. A true effort, not frantic but coordinated. You dared to believe it might end soon. And then came the rumor. The wind had turned, not violently, not like a gale, but enough. You see it in the way the smoke curls now, southward, then westward, toward the very places where the city's defenders had drawn their line, toward Westminster, toward the palaces, toward the parts of London the crown could not afford to lose. The expressions of those around you shift. No more wide eyes, no more panic, just grim resolve. The fight must begin again. You watch as a captain, his face blackened with soot, his tabard scorched, gives orders, in a clipped voice. "Bring down the row," he says, pointing to a line of homes just ahead of the fire's curve. All of it. Axes, ropes, now. The men obey without protest. You wonder how many buildings have been destroyed not by the fire itself, but by the desperate hands of those trying to stop it. It is a cruel irony, destroying homes to save a city. But no one hesitates now. There is no time for sentiment. You find yourself handed a small hatchet. You hesitate. It feels wrong to strike against, something not yet burned. But then you look around, and you understand. Everything that has burned was once whole, was once someone's home. Waiting has cost too much already. You step forward, and you swing. The first hit stings your palms. The sound of it, wood splitting beneath your blow, echoes down the lane. Others follow suit. Soon there is a rhythm to it. Axes rising and falling, wood cracking, beams groaning. A chorus of controlled ruin. The wind grows again by noon, only a little, but enough to carry embers from a smouldering church roof into the nearby gardens of Lincoln's Inn. You hear the cry, "There, the garden wall's caught!" And all motion stops. Everyone turns. For a moment, you feel the breath still in every chest around you. Then the scramble begins. Water, cloth, dirt, boots stomped onto flames, children hauled from tents. And once again, the fire reminds you that it does not die quietly. It resists, snapping at the edges of peace, trying to reclaim the ground you just regained. But this time, it is met with fury. Soldiers do not retreat. Civilians do not scatter. Instead, they press forward. They beat back sparks. They tear down walls. They form lines, shout orders, pass buckets, swing axes. And slowly, they win. You collapse near a wall, your arms trembling from the labor. Beside you, a man with a scar across his cheek lights a pipe with shaking fingers. He takes a long drag, then offers it to you. You decline, coughing from the smoke already in your chest. "We might have her," he says. "London," he nods. "She's bruised, but not beaten." You watch the wind for a while. It blows gently west now, away from the city's broken heart, toward the river, toward the charred remains of streets too quiet to save. But not toward Westminster. Not anymore. Perhaps at last the fire has met its match. not in stone, not in water, but in the sheer, stubborn will of the people who refuse to leave her. You walk again that evening, through a lane where the fire had paused, uncertain. The buildings still stand, scarred but whole. You touch one wall, feeling its warmth. Not the kind that burns, but the kind that remembers. The air is thick with ash, but it no longer stings. Above, the sky begins to clear. The first true blue you've seen in days. And for the first time since the fire began, you believe it might end. When the fire finally falters, it does not vanish in one great sigh. It retreats reluctantly, step by step, ember by ember, like a sated beast slipping back into the forest, leaving behind claw marks across stone and breathless silence where, once, there had been screams. And London, for the first time in nearly a week, begins to look back. Not forward, not outward, but inward, toward itself, toward the smoking bones of its own body. You are among the first to walk the edges of the fires. Last breath, you tread carefully, your boots crunching over coal and glass and collapsed rafters. The ash is still warm in places. Here, the foundations of a tavern. There, the scattered remains of a bookshop, binding threads curled like worms in the dust. You step over a twisted grate and find yourself standing at the intersection where three streets once met. You remember this place. You once bought a candlestick here. You once watched a juggler perform on a summer evening while children chased geese through the square. Now there is only silence. No birds, no bells, no traders. Just the sound of stone cooling, of timber still hissing faintly, and the occasional cry of someone who has found, at last, what they feared to find. A name, a body, a ruin that once bore laughter. The Lord Mayor walks past. In borrowed clothes, you recognize him from the portraits, though his powdered wig is gone, his hat singed at the edge. He does not speak, nor acknowledge the crowd. He steps through the soot, as if walking through a dream that has gone wrong. Beside him, a clerk holds a scroll and counts aloud. Paternoster Row, gone. Watling Street, burned. Cheapside. He trails off, unable to continue. You overhear another man speaking with authority, perhaps from the Privy Council. We must map it, all of it, a full survey, and so it begins. London begins to count her losses. You watch as men, some with chalk, others with charcoal, begin to mark walls, remnants, borders. They trace what was. Where houses once stood, they draw lines. Where lanes once turned, they place markers. Every street is accounted for, though many no longer exist. The map of the city is rewritten, not in ink, but in soot. You join the line of those who walk with them, not as officials, but as witnesses. You name places. Here stood the bakery. This was St. Michael's. My cousin's home was here. My brother kept a shop on this corner. You are not alone. Each person contributes a fragment. Memory becomes measurement. Recollection becomes cartography. You meet an old man who carries a basket filled with stones. I collect them, he explains. From places I knew. A piece from the Guildhall, one from my church, one from the house where I was born. You do not mock him. You understand. You pick up a stone too, a square fragment of red brick. You carry it for the rest of the day, unsure if it comes from your own street or another. It does not matter. It feels like part of the story. Later that evening, you arrive at a camp set beside a half-burned orchard. There is little fruit left, but someone has found a few apples that survived the heat. They share them, sliced thin and passed hand to hand. You chew yours slowly, letting the taste linger. Something fresh, something alive. Around a fire, a man recites a list. 87 churches, 13,000 houses, 4 of the 7 city gates, countless shops, warehouses, taverns. He doesn't finish. Someone else says quietly, 100,000 without homes. A pause, then a softer voice. And how many? Without names? There is no answer. Because that is the truest wound of fire, not just what it burns, but what it erases. The names never written, the letters never sent, the stories never told. You think again of your neighbours, of the old woman with the limp who used to feed cats from her windowsill, of the child who ran through puddles every spring in shoes 2 sizes too large, of the merchant who read aloud to his daughter each Sunday before the bells rang. You do not know where they are. You do not know if they escaped, only that the fire left no trace of them. You sit beside the fire with others. Someone sketches by the light, trying to draw the old skyline from memory. He pauses now and then, staring into the distance. Was it 4 windows or 5? He asks no one in particular. Did the bell tower lean slightly left? It does not matter, and yet it matters entirely, because to draw it is to remember it. To speak of it is to say, it existed, it was real, it mattered, and in that way, the city is slowly reclaimed, not by stone, but by story. The fire has ended, yes, but survival is a second fire, slower, quieter, one that burns not through buildings, but through hearts. You watch the sketcher shade the edge of the old cathedral dome. A little crooked, a little too small, but beautiful still. And as the embers fade in the sky above, you whisper aloud, softly, only for yourself. I remember. The fire, they say, has passed. The final flames smothered. The last sparks extinguished beneath boots, pails, prayers. But still, it lingers. The fire may be gone, yet the smoke remains, drifting through the streets like a memory that cannot forget itself. Not the angry black clouds that once chased people from their homes, but a gentler, more insidious haze. It curls along windowsills. It seeps into the seams of clothing, the cracks of skin. It lives in your breath. And so, though the fire no longer burns, you are still within it. You notice it most when the wind dies. It is morning, or what passes for morning now, and you rise from your bedroll beneath a willow tree on the edge of the refugee camp. The dew is thick, the light thin and pale. Above, the sky begins to reveal itself, no longer hidden beneath thick smoke, but still, it is not clear. It carries a yellow tinge, like the sky seen through an old lantern. You cough, not from illness, not yet, but from the heaviness in your chest. You feel it there, like wool packed into your lungs. Others do too. A woman nearby, her shawl pulled close, wheezes as she pours water into a tin pot. A boy sneezes into his sleeve, again and again. His father rubs his back with one hand, the other holding a damp cloth over his own face. The city no longer crackles, it breathes quietly in smoke. You walk with others back into the edges of London, not to the heart, which is still choked with ash and rubble, but to the half-spared quarters. Here, buildings remain, but their windows are blackened, their walls smudged, their rooftops grey with settling dust. You pass a cloth merchant's shop, shuttered and silent. The bolts remain in place, but the air is thick with the scent of scorched wool. You reach a small square where once there had been a fountain. Water still trickles, though only faintly. The basin is lined with soot. People dip cups into it carefully, not for refreshment, but to rinse their throats. You do the same. The water is bitter, but it clears the dryness for a moment. A man nearby is scrubbing stone with a rag. You watch him, quietly fascinated. He does not speak. His bucket is grey with residue. He scrubs with a steady rhythm, as though the act itself might undo what happened. You ask him, gently, why he bothers. Because it was white, he says. Once. That answer stays with you. You think of all the things that were white before, the fire, linens, sheets, prayer candles, lace, the underside of flower petals. You try to recall when you last saw that colour, untainted. You cannot remember. Everything now is grey, or ash, or shadow. Even the people. The expressions are dulled, the eyes ringed with soot and sleeplessness. Smiles, when they appear, are small, fragile things, like candle flames near an open door. You pass a woman selling charcoals, not for drawing, but for medicine, she claims. It pulls out the poison, she says, offering you a lump in a scrap of cloth. You take it, not because you believe her, but because it feels like something to hold, something to do. The streets, though not on fire, remain foreign. Dust drifts from rooftops. Shutters bang softly in the windless air. Some buildings appear untouched until you step inside. Then you see the truth. Scorched beams, cracked ceilings, scorched furniture covered in layers of smoke. Nothing here is clean, and above all, the smell. Not one smell, but a dozen. Burned fabric, plaster, oil, old meat, wood, ink, candles, iron. Even now, long after the flames have been drowned, the scent lingers. It clings to the skin. It lives in the folds of your clothes. It curls into your dreams. You pause at a churchyard. A woman kneels beside a headstone, scrubbing it with a cloth. Her hands are red. She murmurs a hymn beneath her breath. Her voice is hoarse. You step closer and see that the name has been half buried. In soot, she looks up and says, "He died long before the fire, but I won't let it erase him. You understand, there are many kinds of smoke. Some rise from hearths, some from incense, some from war, and some from memory." Later that day, a group of children play in the remains of a printing shop. They pick through scattered pages, laughing, as they toss them in the air. The pages drift like birds, like leaves. You catch one as it falls. A prayer, smudged, torn, half legible. You fold it and place it in your pocket. Not for faith, but for memory. As you return to the camp, the sun begins to dip behind the trees. The air grows cooler, but the smoke does not retreat. It moves with you. It sleeps beside you. It waits in your lungs. It is no longer something you run from. It is something you carry. That night, you dream of white linens on a line, blowing in the wind, but when you reach for them, they crumble to ash. When all is blackened, when even the sky has been scorched to a soft, colourless hush, you begin to notice the things the fire missed. Not the tall buildings, not the ledger books, not the towers, the titles, or the gold behind vault doors. No, those are lost, or changed so utterly that they might as well be. What remains are the quieter things, the hidden, the human. The first for you is a sound. It comes on the second morning after the flames have finally ceased their crawling across the city's bones. You are walking among the outer lanes, places singed but spared, when you hear it. At first you think it's a bird, then perhaps a whistle in the wind. But no, it is a child humming. You follow the sound and find her perched on a half-collapsed step, hair tangled, hands busy with a string. She loops and knots again and again. You ask her name. She tells you only this: "My mother's voice used to sound like this tune." And then she keeps humming. You stand beside her for a moment, not speaking, and you realize the fire did not take memory, nor lullabies, nor the way a tune can sit inside a chest and echo there long after its singer is gone. You walk on. Later that day, your hands blackened from helping move rubble, you come upon a patch of green. It shouldn't be there, not among so much ash and stone, but it is. A patch of moss clinging to a shaded corner of wall. Fresh, moist, soft. You touch it, and for the first time in days, you feel something cool, something living. A man notices your gaze and steps beside you. "I saw it too," he says. "Yesterday it was smaller. It's growing." The two of you say nothing more. but you stay a moment longer, because even a thumbprint of green means something now. That night, you sit at the edge of camp with others. The fire is small, carefully tended. No one builds large flames anymore. 2. Many memories are still raw. But around the tiny hearth, stories begin to rise. A woman with a shawl speaks of her cat, still missing. A boy tells of how he helped his father carry water until the handles on the buckets burned their hands. An old sailor mutters about how he saw St. Paul's dome fall and how he swore it sounded like the end of the world. No one laughs, but no one leaves. You realize, in the way their voices lift and soften, that stories have returned. The fire did not take the voice, or the need to speak, or the way humans reach toward one another in the dark. Come morning, you rise early, not from duty, but because sleep is shallow, and the wind brings a strange new scent. Fresh bread. You follow it, heart trembling, and you find it. A woman, apron tied with a rope, flour on her sleeves, working beside a blackened oven built in the lee of a half-fallen wall. She has dough rising in a pan. Behind her, a young man fans embers. You stare. She smiles. Faintly, "It won't taste like much," she says, "but it's warm." And when she hands you a piece, coarse, barely salted, torn from a larger loaf, you take it in both hands. You eat slowly. It is dry. It is perfect because it is bread, because it is new, because it means beginning. Across the street, someone sets up a table, not a shop, just a board on 2 crates. On it, a small stack of pots, sooty, some dented, but whole. A sign, charcoal on a scrap of linen. Found. Yours. You smile. The fire did not take decency, nor fairness, nor the idea that what was shared must be returned. You pass a window with panes mostly gone. In the corner, tucked against one jagged edge of glass, sits a painted icon, Mary and child, their faces faded but visible. A candle flickers beside it. Too small to offer light, but bright enough to remind you, faith is not in churches. It is in gestures, in persistence, in the fragile act of placing one more flame against the dark. By midday, the streets are alive again. Not with commerce, not yet, but with hands, hammering boards into place, lifting beams, scrubbing soot from stone. A child balances on a barrel to clean soot from a nameplate. Someone nearby sings. Just a phrase, just once. You feel it echo in your chest. You close your eyes, and for a moment, not long, but true, you believe this city will not only live, but grow. It will not be the same. It will never be the same. But it will rise, because something within you, remained untouched. A name, a prayer, a thimble, a story. And as you press your palm against the soot-marked wall and feel the warmth of stone returning to its work, you whisper it. The fire did not take everything, not everything. The fire has passed, yes. But what it leaves behind is not absence, it is shape. A city carved anew in cinder and soot. Streets once narrow are now widened by destruction. Roofs that once leaned shoulder to shoulder now lie flat, open to the grey sky. Alleys are gone, landmarks erased. What remains is strange. A version of London stripped of its ornaments, standing in its rawest form. And the people, they too begin to reshape. You walk with them, not toward safety now, but toward recovery. The urgency of survival has lessened. In its place comes something else, a cautious hope, tender and thin, like skin freshly healed. The days are longer, again. Smoke no longer swallows the horizon. The sky is visible, if pale, and for the first time since the blaze began, the scent in the air is more earth than ember. You join a gathering near the Guildhall's remnants. The stone shell remains, proud though scarred, its arches streaked with black. Here, those who once held ledgers now hold meetings in the open air. A scribe reads out lists of streets lost, of churches burned, of needs needs unmet. You listen. Each name is a wound reopened, but there is a rhythm to the reading, a cadence, a strange kind of prayer, one that begins not with blessings, but with reckonings. Later, you walk toward Cornhill. The merchant's stalls are ash heaps, but someone has hammered up a rough plank with chalk marks. Trade begins again. Beneath it, 3 men argue the price of salt. Their voices are not angry, only familiar. You realize, with a slow swell of recognition, bargaining is a kind of music, and music has returned. You pass by a group of women clearing a ruined shop. They stack scorched barrels with the same care once given to wares. One finds a spoon half melted into a bowl and holds it up. "Still good for soup," she says. They laugh, a laugh that catches like a flame, but a gentle one, warming rather than consuming. In another street, a man erects a sign from scavenged slate. "Barber, no walls, but steady hands." A stool sits beneath the open sky. A customer already waits, chin lifted in faith. You stop, you watch. The razor gleams, hair falls, and the city grows again, hair by hair, spoon by spoon. That evening, you return to your own stretch of ash. You have done this each day since the fire ceased. You walk the path where your home once stood, your boots stirring the dust of memory. Today, you carry chalk. You find a brick that once framed your hearth and write a name on it, your father's, then another, your mother's, then your own. Beneath just 3 words, "We lived here." You don't cry. The tears are gone, but your breath catches in your throat, and that is enough to remind you. You are still becoming something beyond this ruin. The next morning, a cart rolls into the square, bearing wooden beams and tools. Not soldiers, not clergy, but craftsmen, carpenters, masons, apprentices too young to have known plague, but now old enough to know fire. They step down and begin to speak in measured tones, voices thick with trade and timber. They mark ground, they draw lines, they speak of drainage, of stone thickness, of scaffolds and setbacks. You stand at the edge, listening. "Here," one says, pointing to the ground where 3 streets once met, "we'll build back stronger." Another adds, "Wider lanes, no more timber, stone only, brick too where we can." A third man lifts his eyes to the sky and says quietly, "We'll leave room for light this time." Light. That word sits in your chest like a seed. You volunteer, you lift stones, you stack planks. Your back aches, your palms blister, but you do not stop. Because this is more than labor. It is ritual. It is offering. It is proof that the city is not finished, that you are not finished. By week's end, the first frame of a new shop rises. Not yours, not yet, but someone's. And around it, others take shape. Posts go up like ribs. Roofs are promised in beams and ropes. Cloth is stretched to keep the wind out. Children run between skeleton walls, shouting imaginary battles, creating cities within cities. And you laugh. You laugh with them, because this, too, is rebuilding. The baker whose home vanished now teaches his daughter to knead dough atop a barrel. The preacher, who lost his chapel, now delivers sermons from a milk crate near the market ruins. The scribe who once copied contracts now writes letters for the illiterate, sitting cross-legged on a step. And you sweep, you lift, you listen, you remember. At dusk, you light a candle on the edge of a fallen wall, not in mourning, but in defiance. Because here, amid all that was lost, something remains. London. Not as she was, but as she could be, as she will be. And though the fire tried to take everything, it did not take that. The sound of hammers is the new heartbeat of London, not the elegant peal of church bells, nor the gossip of markets, but the steady rhythmic thud of timber being driven into earth, of stone meeting stone, of the city learning how to rise again. You hear it from morning to evening, echoing off the blackened walls that remain. And in this sound, there is purpose, there is persistence, You no longer wake in fear, not entirely. The night no longer glows red. The sky has returned to blue, sometimes, even bright. But the wound of fire still pulses beneath your feet. You feel it in every corner where soot hides beneath floorboards, in the cracked windows that tremble at every breeze. Still, you choose to return each day to the same place, the same corner of what once was your street. There is no roof yet, no walls, but there is ground. And that, you've learned, is enough. One morning, you gather stones and begin to arrange them, not because anyone asked you to, but because your hands must do something. The city must begin somewhere. As you build, others join. A neighbor you thought dead arrives with a cart of salvaged bricks. A widow offers a bundle of nails she carried from the East End. An apprentice, not yet 14, lays out a row of planks with the precision of a craftsman twice his age. You work in silence, not because there is nothing to say, but because the work itself speaks. You learn the names of those beside you not through introduction, but through their rhythm, how they lift, how they pass, how they breathe between tasks. One evening, as the sun slides low over the Thames, you stop and look, not at the ruin, but at what stands within it. A scaffold here, a stall there, a narrow set of stairs rising where none stood yesterday. It is not yet London, but it is becoming, and in that becoming, you find comfort. That night, beside the fire, someone passes around a map. It is rough, hand-drawn in charcoal and ink. It shows the new city, how it might be. Streets widened, squares cleared, buildings set back from one another, no longer huddled in timbered rows, but standing apart, breathing space between them. You trace it with your finger. Will it really be like this, you ask? An older man nods. If we dare to build it so. Another voice, soft, hopeful. And if they let us? You know what she means. For now the king speaks of rebuilding. Parliament debates. Officials measure and inspect. But you also know how the world works. Land is power. Stone costs coin. And not all who lost their homes will find them again. Still, the city belongs to its people, and you, brick by brick, are proving it. One morning, you walk north to where the fire never reached. There, shops remain open. Streets are clean. The contrast is jarring. You pass women in clean gowns, men in powdered wigs. Their voices are sharp, untouched by ash. A boy in a pristine waistcoat stares at your soot-stained boots. And yet, even here, something has shifted. At a corner, you see a paper nailed to a post. A notice, signed by the Crown, promising aid, describing plans, urging order. You read it twice, then walk on. Back into the broken lanes where the real rebuilding happens. Not by decree, but by hand. Later, in the stillness of the afternoon, you find a letter. It is folded in the gutter, edges burned but legible, addressed to no one, perhaps dropped, perhaps meant to be found. It reads, "If you read this, know that I stayed. I ran at first, like the others, but I came back. Not to save what was, but to find what might be. The fire took my home. It did not take my courage." You fold the letter and place it in your coat. You do not know the writer, but their words feel like yours. At the worksite, someone brings bread. Another offers broth. The meals are simple, but shared. And in that sharing, something sacred is restored. The baker who lost her oven now teaches others to knead. The cobbler works beside a carpenter, making benches until he can find enough leather to stitch shoes again. The young boy who once drew houses in chalk now sketches floor plans for real ones. Everything is slow. Everything is sacred. One stone at a time. You write your name again, this time on the beam of a doorway, your own. Not out of pride, but as a marker. I am still here. We are still here. One evening, the wind shifts again, this time not with smoke, but with song. A voice rises from somewhere near the old church ruins. A psalm, familiar but tentative. Others join in, one by one, voice after voice, old men, small children. The tune weaves itself between broken walls, over rooftops, through scaffolds. You do not sing, not yet, but you listen. And in listening, you feel it. The fire has passed, but London has not. Long after the flames have died, the silence becomes louder. It is not the silence of peace, but of absence. A space where once there was sound, bells, laughter, market cries, the patter of children's feet, is now filled with nothing but the wind brushing against blackened stone. It echoes, this wind, carrying stories no longer told aloud. You walk slowly through what remains of your quarter. Familiar places are now only outlines in soot and rubble. Each turn you take is a memory, made physical, both comforting and cruel. You know these steps, but they no longer know you. At the edge of what was once your street, a wall still stands. Not fully, just one side, a jagged vertical scar of stone. You touch it, and the soot darkens your fingers. But beneath the dust, you find something carved, faint, but there. It's a name, not yours, but someone's. You trace it, gently. Letters once etched in pride, or perhaps in boredom, now become a kind of memorial. The fire has stripped London bare, but in its ruins, it has also revealed the marks left behind, the ones made by hands that lived. Across the lane, you see a woman kneeling beside a pile of scorched bricks. Her face is lined, her sleeves rolled up. She's picking through them one by one, brushing them off with a corner of her shawl. You approach, curious, not wanting to intrude. These were the front steps, she says softly. You nod, not knowing what to say. My children used to sit here in summer, picking at the mortar, laughing. She holds up one brick and turns it in her palm. This one has their footprints. You can just barely see them, and you do. Two small prints, side by side, shallow but still visible. The fire took the roof, the walls, the windows, but not this, not the prints, not the memory. You stay with her a while, helping to set the bricks aside, not for building, but for remembering. She stacks them neatly, not in rows, but in the shape of a hearth. No fire burns in it, but the shape itself offers warmth. Farther on, in what used to be the churchyard, someone has hung white cloth along a row of half-toppled stones. Names are written in ink, some full, some partial, others just initials. It is not official, it is not permanent, but it is a beginning. You take a scrap of cloth from the basket offered by the gate, and you write a name, then another, and one more. Each letter feels like a breath drawn back from the ashes. You tie it to the line, the wind fluttering it gently, as if the air itself wants to remember. Later that day, a man begins speaking in the square. He is not a preacher, not a mayor, just a citizen like you. He stands on a broken crate and reads from a page in his hand. Recollections, scraps of conversations, things overheard before the fire. They used to sell the best honey cakes on Bell Alley, he says. Someone in the crowd smiles. And on Candlewick, there was an old woman with 5 cats who knitted scarves for dogs. You remember? A few people nod. A few chuckle. She's gone now. But the scarves, they turned up in the rubble. And the dogs, they're with neighbours. This is not a sermon. It is a remembering. A ceremony not of grief, but of honour. Others join him. Each offers a fragment. The way the sun hit a window on Friday afternoons, the sound of milk pails clinking down the lane, the story of a blind fiddler who never missed a wedding. You find yourself stepping forward. You don't plan it, it just happens. You tell them about the bench outside your house, the one with the chipped leg that no one ever fixed, how every child in the lane used it as a pirate ship, a throne, a merchant's stall, how it never held still, because it never had to. They listen, and in that listening, the bench returns. You can almost see it again, not in wood, but in story, not in shape, but in presence. You stay until twilight, and as the crowd thins, someone brings candles. They are placed on ledges, in window holes, on stone steps. Some flicker, some stay strong. You help light them, one by one. No, one speaks, but as the square glows softly, you feel it, the city's breath returning. That night, you return to your sleeping place beside the scaffold of a half-built home. The stars above are sharp, the air chill, but in your chest, something has shifted. You realize that remembering is not backward, it is forward. To remember is to choose what matters, to carry it, to speak it, to build with it. Tomorrow, the walls will rise higher. The carts will roll farther. The bells may chime again. But tonight, in the hush of half light and half ruin, London sings her quiet song. We are still here. We remember. We begin again. Morning does not arrive all at once. It creeps in softly, as if unsure it is welcome. A pale light slipping across soot-covered beams, pooling quietly on broken cobblestones. There is no trumpet to greet the dawn, only the shuffle of boots, the rustle of cloth, and the faint, almost timid sound of a kettle beginning to boil. And yet, it is morning. For the first time since the fire began, it feels true. You step outside your makeshift shelter, a canvas lean-to tied between the skeletons of two walls. The air is damp but clear. No smoke, no ash in your throat. Just breath, simple and clean. Across the courtyard, someone is sweeping. Not just ash, but leaves. Autumn has come. It crept in beneath the chaos, and now it lays a new kind of blanket over the ruins. Yellow, brown, gold. You watch for a while. The woman sweeps in circles, humming as she goes. Not loud, not cheerful, just steady. As if reminding the ground that life still turns here. You nod to her, and she nods back. The language of survivors is quiet, built of glances and gestures. You move toward what will be your home. It is not yet. A house, just a frame, beams lashed together with rope and promise. But it stands, and within it, the outline of a hearth has begun to form. You kneel and place your hand on the lowest stone. It is cool, and solid, and real. A boy runs past, chasing a dog made more of bones than fur. He laughs. The sound startles you, not because it is strange, but because it has become rare. You smile, then you laugh too, just once. A small echo. The fire did not take laughter, not all of it. You join the others gathering in the square. Someone has prepared a pot of stew. It smells of lentils, onion and pepper, scavenged from what could be, found shared among all. There are no bowls, only cups and wooden spoons, but no one complains. You eat slowly, surrounded by those who remained. They are not the same as before. Their clothes are patched, their hands are cracked, their faces bear soot stains like freckles. But their eyes, their eyes carry something new, a defiance, a quiet kind of pride. One of them raises a cup. To the ones who stayed, another adds, to those who returned, and a third, after a pause, to those who could not. No one speaks after that, but everyone drinks. In the stillness that follows, a bell rings. Not from a steeple, it no longer stands, but from a rope tied to a wooden post. A boy pulls it with both hands. The sound is crooked, almost tinny, but it is a bell, and it is heard. You follow its call to a gathering near the ruins of the cathedral. The site has been cleared, a ring of stones set. Around what was once the altar, there is no priest, no sermon, only people. They sit on crates, barrels, stones. They listen as a woman, grey-haired, shawled, reads from a leather book, the pages brittle but legible. Not scripture. Poetry. Lines about seasons and silence and the warmth of memory. You close your eyes and let the words settle over you like soft snow. No one claps, but no one leaves. Later, A man with ink-stained fingers begins writing names on a board, charcoal on whitewash, names of the lost, names of the saved, names of streets now vanished, of shops remembered only by what they sold and who stood behind their counters. He leaves space between each name. For those still searching, he says. You ask if you may write a name, and he hands you the chalk. Your fingers tremble. You write it slowly, then another, and another. Each name steadies your breath, as if memory has become a form of healing. By midday, carts arrive from the river, supplies, tools, books, even seeds. A woman with a trowel begins planting, herbs in a patch of soil where once stood a tavern, basil, sage, a few fennel bulbs. She speaks softly to them as she works. They don't know there was a fire, she says, and I won't tell them. You help her water them. That evening, lanterns are hung between buildings, not walls, but wooden frames tied with twine. Candles flicker in old glass jars. Children dance beneath them. Someone plays a tune on a salvaged flute. The music rises, and with it, something more. Hope. Not the grand kind, not the kind sung in halls or written into law, but the kind that settles into your bones. The kind you feel when you close your eyes and still believe the world might be kind again. You sit beside your hearth frame as dusk deepens. In your lap is a stone, the one you first picked up from the rubble. You run your thumb along its edge. It is smooth now, worn by weeks of being carried, touched, turned over and over. A story in your hand. Tomorrow, the work will continue. Stones laid, timber raised, paths swept, songs sung. But tonight, you rest, you lean back, and you look at what still stands. The city, reborn. The people, undiminished. And yourself, no longer running, no longer afraid. The fire is behind you, but its lessons remain, and among them, this one shines brightest. What survives, endures. What endures, becomes. And from what becomes, something wondrous is always born.